Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our amazing February movies we all absolutely love and find fantastically amazing. We are Super Monkey Fighters. I'm Loki here with Papa Nugget and Monkey Feathers for another What Would You Change podcast. This time it's Miss Congeniality, the amazing story of an FBI agent who must go undercover in the Miss United States pageant, not Miss America, because copyright, to prevent a group from bombing the event. So, directed by Donald Petrie, written by Marc Lawrence, Katie Ford, and one more credit, Karen Lucas. Stars, of course, Sandra Bullock, Caine, Benjamin Bratt, Candice Bergen, William Shatner, Ernie Hudson, John DeResta, and a bunch of other people. So go check out IMDb if you really want to see the list. I don't have a ton of likes. Does anybody have a ton of likes? I mean, I didn't hate this one as much as I've hated other movies. I thought that there was
because
some more
the
comedy to
FBI
it.
was involved, right?
Yes. So I liked it more because of the high intensity action sequences and facial prosthetics on Benjamin Bratt. Monkey Feathers, I'm sure you've got some likes about this film.
I do. So I liked Gracie. I liked Gracie Hart. I liked her character. I am a fan of Sandra Bullock. I think some of her roles are not good ones, and even she has admitted some of her roles aren't good ones. But overall, I do like her as an actress, and so I liked her in this role. A lot of her scenes had comedic to it. Like one of the scenes that I've always found entertaining was when she's on the plane before she goes in and goes undercover for the operation, but she's making fun of the beauty pageants and the contestants. I've always found that scene entertaining because it's just over the top and she's doing it on purpose because that's what her
Well, and
character would do. And
she's acting
so,
it as well. So she seems,
yes,
if it weren't in that context, you would believe that she had just won a beauty pageant. But
yes. So a lot of her scenes I like. Do I think that this movie has some issues? Yes. But overall, I think that her character is believable and genuine, and I found her entertaining. And I liked the friendship that she built with these other contestants. I guess the
mhm.
core, like five or six of them, it was believable. And it genuinely came across as a friendship, and it's something that her character itself hadn't ever had with other women because she always came across as the tough, I'm going to punch you in your face and you're going to just cry and go forth. And I liked the friendship that was built with these other girls, other women in the pageant because it felt very believable.
I think this is a good showcase of kind of her comedic abilities. But I think there were far more comedic actors in the roles. Caine, I think, is hilarious in this. Well,
Glide.
yes. Every time he's pulling a donut, he's smacking a donut out of her hand. All of those kinds of things. I think he's Michael Caine, and he's a better believable side character. As an actor, he's utilized to his abilities. So I thought that was fantastic. I do. A lot of this movie is kind of cliche. Like I think those are most of the problems I have with it. It's cookie cutter action movie, romantic comedy with weird sex comedy. Like so, the way I would summarize this movie, and as a good and bad, maybe I should summarize it at the end. Is it's 2 hours of her taking her glasses off and lowering her hair. That cliche where, oh, you're the nerdy girl, but all we got to do is take your glasses off and shake your head, and now you're hot, kind of a thing. So I did like those kinds of things. I liked William Shatner. He's one of those people you could just watch do anything all the time. It didn't bug me as much that it was cliche, that it was just your standard. It's not trying to be that kind of a movie, right? It's just have popcorn, be entertained for a couple of hours on the weekend and then go home kind of a thing. This one didn't bother me as much, so I put less focus on trying to kind of dissect it and just kind of went along for the ride a little bit. and it's forgettable for me, but enjoyable. Like I didn't have a visceral reaction where I wanted to run out of the room screaming. So that's, I guess, a positive for it.
Yeah. So as far as my likes, I would agree. The Gracie Hart's character is probably the main thing that kind of keeps the movie together and enjoyable. The comedy is good. It's kind of like you said, Loki. Like I just was along for the ride.
And I can't quite nail down exactly why this one. I think this one's more ridiculous, which I think makes it a little bit more enjoyable. This Congeniality is the slightly more on the Ace Ventura side of comedies. Like,
so it's funny you mentioned that. Like this had a really The Mask feeling to me, like just the way that it was shot. And I don't know if it was just like it seemed like it was shot really contrasty. Like there were a lot of like dark contrasty scenes visually, which just I don't know why it was chosen to do it that way. I don't know if it was because of the dark scenes in the nefarious pageant lady, whatever her character was, or whatnot. But
Candice Bergen, Kathy Morning's
that really like stood out to me, like from the get go. Just the way that it was shot. It's nothing negative to say about it, it's just, it was a style choice. I thought the comedy was good. It was enough to keep my attention for the most part.
I wouldn't say that this is a standout movie for anybody who's in it. It does what it sets out to do. It's, I don't have like that's nothing really like there's the scene that stands out the most, which is kind of by intention, is when after she's had her makeover and she's walking out of the airport, the hangar to walk to the plane, right? That walk scene, and then she falls at the end. Like that is kind of the scene in the movie, right? Where like this is what we're going to advertise it with, and it's going to be the standout thing, and it's the thing that people remember, and it is what I remember. Like, I think it's ridiculously stupid, but it works very well for this film. Like, it summarizes that slapstick comedy. Hey, here's this trope. We've set up this expectation, and now she's going to be, perfect and beautiful, and everybody's going to fall in love with her. And then she falls and stumbles, and it's hilarious. And she still can't walk in heels. And
it's kind of a fish out of water movie, where she's trying to figure out how to be someone she's not naturally. And we are just kind of follow along through those escapades.
Yeah. And that shot specifically works really well because they pulled off that change. You're watching her walk and you're like, yep, all right, I'm on board. I believe that this is what's going on. This is the character, point of view. Like I've invested because of that. And then, the payoff when she falls it works. I would have liked to have seen, this is a note I put down, more Candice Bergen, more Caine, and more William Shatner. I think to me, those are the standouts. Also Ernie Hudson. I think that they kind of weren't utilized. They were utilized well, but I would have liked to have seen more of them. Especially Ernie Hudson wasn't really, like, he was given kind of the most, mundane random character. Like, you need to be here to just be the bad FBI director who shuts everything down. Like, we don't need to actually utilize you as a character the way that Ernie Hudson can be a character. I think William Shatner is the one who stands out the most in those, and Caine. They're great, and I just they're the ones I want to see more of. Every time that they're not on screen, it's like, why don't you just bring them back in? Like when they're in the club with the paint. Like why is this not William Shatner and Caine dancing around just everywhere? Like, one thing that really bothered me was her snorting laugh. Like, I just, like, why wasn't she wearing glasses that were taped in the middle? Like, just Poindexter kind of nerd. Like, it bugged me the whole time.
Just kind of pulled you out of it a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing, which I think is I think they did it well for the time. Her whole transformation, I really did like this is like a big operation kind of like Area 51 level kind of thing where they're, waxing and all that kind of stuff.
You'd say you did like that?
I did. I thought that was really well, but as a
I
negative,
did not like that.
I think
I thought it was terrible.
Completely
unbelievable.
It's a ridiculous and over the top for what the movie is, but the way that this similar scene was handled with Steve Carell in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, that's the way you do that scene. Like, it was as they were going through stuff, it's like, especially the waxing, because I put that down. Steve Carell did waxing better. They didn't go far enough with it, right? It was just like, whoosh, ow. And you're like, where Steve Carell is actually bleeding and yelling out profanities, and they didn't go far enough with it. That was the opportunity to take it to that next unbelievable level. Like, that should be the thing that's memorable from this movie.
Well, let's be honest, though. Steve Carell's scene in 40-Year-Old Virgin, he has a lot of chest hair, so it's going to hurt.
Yes, but it's the kind of thing where, like, to me, that's what should have been memorable. They set her up as that, right? They set her up as she's the tomboy. She doesn't care about her appearance, but they show waxing her legs that are perfectly smooth already. Like, that's where that was that chance to take that slapstick comedy as far as it can go, and they just didn't do it. So, like I said, I think that was an opportunity to make that the memorable scene, not Sandra Bullock in a tight mini skirt walking out of a hangar and then falling down. Like, I think that they missed the opportunity with that. So that is in my negative column, that whole sequence, because it wasn't bigger than it was. But I see where they were trying to go with it, and didn't quite land. The other big thing, and reading through my notes, is this is there's a lot of weird sexual harassment throughout this entire film.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's terrible.
That's one of my dislikes, is a lot of the treatment of women in this, where it's overly sexualized, overly, like, the scene with them just trying to find someone who's going to go undercover, and they're putting women in bathing suits, and they're then making comments like, "Oh, she's ugly," and "Oh, she can never do it," and
I felt a little uncomfortable watching that.
Well, that's good.
Like how what workplace was this happening?
Yeah. And that was the thing that got me, was it was all workplace stuff where
workplace harassment, basically.
It wasn't coworkers joking back and forth. It was it was harassment straight up. And
and the scene where Gracie is being recruited, and it's the whole fight scene where he grabs her ass and then he slaps her ass and things like that. Like,
and it's talking
she's your coworker. Don't treat her like garbage.
Yeah, do some toning exercises,
which is funny because
I don't know if that's trying to build the connection between those two, because they do a better job of it later on. But that was like, I don't know why why are these people working together? Like, this shouldn't be a function. This isn't a functional team. There should never be a connection that comes after this. So it's
was one of the biggest things that I had issues with, is just the treatment and the over sexualization of women in this. I think this one was like 2001 or something.
It was 2000.
Yeah.
But let's be fair.
And
they were gender neutral in their little bathing suit software escapades.
It's true. Yes. And I'm not saying that. But just when she's walking through the behind the scenes with all the women in bathing suits and all the men's reactions or things like that, I'm not a fan of that.
It was the weird reinforcing gender stereotypes and playing off of, which happened a lot in that era, but playing off of the gay jokes and those kinds of things, like the gliding that we were talking about earlier, where she, her response is, takes a very secure man to walk that way.
Well, and there's the gay joke where they're trying to get into the pageant at the very end, and Michael Caine's character is like, "No, he's with me," and Benjamin, his character, he says, "Well, I'm not with him," and then Michael Caine comes back and he's like, "Come on, Muffin." So there's some overly playing of gay jokes.
Yeah, it's jokes that worked for the time period. that I don't even think would be considered. Like the humor would just be in a different route these days. And it wouldn't have existed, 10, 15 years before. I don't know if they necessarily would have made those level of jokes. I think it fits it very much to the time period that it was at, where that was the kind of humor that was around. So
there was even, I'm not a fan of this either because it's a serious condition, but it's the throwaway bulimic joke where she brings in the pizza and they're all saying, well, she can't eat that. You know how many calories that is? And Grace said, well, it's light beer, and she's just going to throw the pizza up later anyway. It's like, you're throwing so light of a comment to such a serious condition. That's not okay.
Which, I mean, that's a lot of how humor goes, but it's also one of those things where, bad taste is bad. A joke in bad taste is still a joke in bad taste. And it's not the kind of movie that's trying to make social awareness a thing with those. It's one of the just like the gay jokes, right? They're throwaway comments that don't mean anything to the people who say them, but to the people that they impact negatively, it's that way. Which I think is my biggest issue with this film is it's kind of a mix of weird things. Like I said, it's kind of a romantic comedy, it's kind of a generic action movie, it's kind of a sex comedy. Like it doesn't, and they don't play well together, right?
Yeah.
When she's,
So the whole reason the FBI is there to foil this plot, like that, coupled with kind of the whole purpose of the film is Sandra Bullock's transformation and building of friendships with all the contestants. Like I feel like they're completely separate, and like they make the FBI out to be like idiots because it's like, oh, we got the DNA and it's a woman, but we think it's this contestant because of this picture we found. Well, it's like, go test her DNA. Like, don't it's a woman, so we're not going to use the DNA to like actually figure out who it is. It's like,
this is the task force trying to catch this serial criminal who then doesn't catch him because somebody else just finds him in a shack in the Nevada. Like, the task force that's trying to find him is not there. Like, it just, like I said, none of those things quite jive and mix very well together.
It's like they're like mutually exclusive, but they're happening within the same time frame. Yeah, but they don't play on each other.
The reveal of who the actual villain is, like, doesn't, like, you don't care, right? Like, you don't care about that storyline because the movie's not about that kind of a thing. And so by the time they're like, it's the big reveal, and you're like, I'm not surprised and I don't care. Like,
well, and they didn't even like deliver it very well. Like, they kind of alluded to it a little bit, and then it's like, yep, that was it. It was her. Yeah, it's like, okay, and she has a creepy son.
It plays out. It just plays out from that point in time. Like, it's not a continual spiraling twist of who done it reveal at the end. It's like, you kind of reveal who the bad guy is.
They kind of just interject information from the FBI's perspective throughout, which is like dumb and doesn't make any actual sense. And then at the end, it's like, nope, it was her. Yep. See?
Well, and it's not like the reveal of, to bring it back to Ace Ventura and Jim Carrey and the mask and those kinds of things. Ace Ventura, that they know who it is fairly early on, but they don't know that that's an actual character. And like that is, even as a comedic twist, is a twist it happens at the end, not in the middle of the movie. And then we keep going and it just continues to play out as, yep, this is the villain being a villain.
And I still don't understand like the whole premise of, oh, we need to embed someone as a contestant. Like, that makes no sense to me.
It's because they needed somebody who had access to everything. And it's like, well, stage manager.
Just go stand around, talk to
random
people.
Hobo. Or, hey, we're the FBI. There's been a credible threat made against you. We're going to just be here to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to distract myself as being a contestant, which is going to make me invaluable to solving this case.
They approach the person who's actually the villain early on, and they don't play on that. Like, she's trying to mix things up. Like, she actually threatens an FBI agent. Like, you're the criminal here, right? You should probably be trying to work them to your own ends, not just.
Yeah.
So I think the whole premise of that doesn't work, or was done very poorly. But like I said, that wasn't the point of the show. They just needed something there, and that's as much thought that appears to have been put into it.
Yeah, it's kind of like choosing a setting, and you're like, where is it set? In the city. You're like, okay, which city? And they're like, no, it's just a city, guy. Like, relax. Like, that's kind of how these characters felt, is like they were more setting rather than characters. And it was like, we want these crazy things to happen. So how do we build things around it? And let's just kind of tape things together to make it work, so that we can have these specific scenes. Her walking out of the thing, and the gags and the jokes. Like, it's the jokes don't come from the situation. The situation comes from the jokes. Like, it's being in the time period that it was, because I wrote down where I wrote 2 hours of taking her glasses off and lowering her hair makes her hot, mixed with generic action movie and slight sex comedy jokes. I think because of the success of American Pie, like the year before it came out, I think that's where they kind of tried to ratchet up that raunchiness a little bit. But it just doesn't serve the movie that well. And it American Pie is ridiculous and over the top and sexist and ridiculous and does all of those crazy things because that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to push that extreme to be comedic. And I don't think that I don't think they push the extreme.
The only other thing was just kind of that Eric Matthews characters. So kind of the whole dynamic of Gracie and him. Like, I feel like that didn't work. Like, they're trying to have sexual tension between them the entire time, and they could have done a better job at establishing where it was going. Like, it was really awkward, but maybe that's the point they were trying to portray. It seems like because she's supposed to be awkward, right?
Yeah.
But in the same breath, like, he's really awkward too.
Yeah, there's one scene that I think works really well for that, and none of the other ones really do. But it's he knocks on the glass door, and then they go off and do a bunch of stuff, and then it's when they're coming back, and she's doing the "you want to love me" da 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 scene. Yeah. It's right after that when he actually makes it seem like he's interested, and she starts to, okay, this is going to happen, and then he takes a bite of the Snickers bar and walks off. Like, that scene works for everything that it's doing.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you're just like, I don't believe, like, everything before that, you're like, he's just kind of a dick to her the whole time. Like, it's not.
It's very
camaraderie.
Much.
It's harassment.
It's very much. You're pretty now,
yeah.
and I have feelings for you now because you're all of a sudden pretty.
Yeah.
There was no good development between them.
But they didn't establish that, right? Like, why are they building a relationship? And they just kind of like, it just happens, but they don't show any real connection or depth. It just, it's the end of the movie and now we love each other. Yeah.
It's the way every relationship works. Just you spend time with somebody and then you're in love. That's how it works. Like, there's nothing happens. It's just being forced to be together. So, and I think that's one of the problems I have with a lot of movies, is just those kinds of things where you're just like, this is the way we wrote it, but we're not going to try and make it believable or make it work. Like,
it's like you hint towards something and then it just happens. But
changes.
Integrate a better villain, the whole plot, how the FBI handles it, if you're going to have it there, since it's kind of pretty central to the. I mean, it's not central, but it's
the driving factor. It's what
ancillary
keeps things moving.
Either. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's you need a reason for this whole situation. Like, so put some more effort into it.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like an afterthought.
Better treatment of women in the movie. Stop treating them like sex objects and more as actual people.
I want to try and say that it's about women's rights, but it's really not. Like, it's the opposite of that. Like, it's trying to shoehorn specific roles and specific viewpoints, because it's similar to how the gay jokes, right? It's they're secondary, right? And even though this is the woman was right in the end kind of a thing, they still, even with the male characters, like they're cliches of these archetypes.
Yeah, and they really played up in the scene where the boss, I can't remember his name, the FBI boss, they were
Ernie
in the
Hudson.
Yeah, they were in the hotel room, and like Gracie gives her a whole spiel on what she thinks should happen, and then he turns to Benjamin and he's like, "Is there any? Should I believe this?" So they got to ask him, and he's like, "No." And then that was the whole like breaking part in their relationship, but like, and then they just like pack up and leave because he said that they shouldn't look into it anymore.
That's something that was annoying because the fact that they send Gracie in undercover to find out the truth, and she found a credible lead, and instead of believing her, they're just like, "Oh, you've just been screwing around with all these people and just been having fun. You haven't been doing your job." And it's like, no, she's been doing her job. And she's a good FBI agent. Granted, she made a mistake in the beginning of the film, but it doesn't discredit her earlier experiences as an FBI agent.
Yeah, her mistake at the beginning of the film is not necessarily a mistake. Her mistake was not letting someone die. Like,
so
mistakes
you want to know the mistake in that scene?
Yeah.
None of the FBI agents fired their weapons. That was the mistake in that scene.
Yeah.
So they got shot at by the Russians, and then they're like, "We're just going to stand here and not do anything."
And one of the FBI agents just randomly shows up out of nowhere, is not pointing his gun anywhere, and then a Russian big dramatic movement to shoot him. It's like, no, like, again, she's not the one who makes the mistakes, and that's part of the kind of the treatment of women in this and the sexism in this is she's blamed for all of their mistakes. Like,
they had double the firepower.
Well, and she's blamed for their mistakes.
This guy's choking. None of them have weapons pointed. Like,
Well, she's blamed for their mistakes, and then when they're trying to figure out how to potentially infiltrate the pageant, Eric Matthews is taking credit for all of her ideas that she's putting out there.
Yeah.
And it's just, I get that that's kind of how this movie is based on, but it still is, in my opinion, disrespectful of women, and it should be changed.
It seems more like it reinforces those ideas rather than tries to break them down, where it's not the opportunity to show how all of that way is wrong. It just kind of reinforces it, and then gives you the good pat on the back because she was right in the end and everything was, it all came together. Like it doesn't break down those stereotypes.
It's a little one-sided. It really reinforces it throughout, and then at the end it's like, oh, she was right. Oh, good job. Gold star.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the first half. Most of the movie is, oh, that's right. Here's the reasons why you make 70% of what men do, but pat on the head because you were right in the end. You're just like, no. And I don't know. Again, maybe this is looking at it back, through the lens, but I don't think my headspace would have been the same then. I wouldn't have had these thoughts then about it.
I know I didn't. So I think that's when I first saw this. It was back when it came out.
Yeah, it would have been, the Blockbuster Hollywood Video movie night. We rented 5 or 6 movies, and this was the one that my mom wanted to see. So,
to all of our audience who has no idea about the Blockbuster Hollywood Video movie nights, and that all we have now is Netflix,
is how a lot of family interactions were built around that. You'd go pick up a pizza and a movie, and as far as the things I would change, it's tough to say, like, to change it to make it more like socially relevant kind of a thing. I think kind of breaks what they were going for in the movie, but I think also not addressing or changing some of those things just continues to perpetuate those situations. So yeah, it's one of those as well that just kind of reinforces, racial stereotypes as well. I think, like, there's even weirdly specific, like the contestant from Hawaii, like, they just make some Hawaii jokes about, those kinds of things. So I think those are kinds of things that you can have this same kind of a movie, but incorporate and be more inclusive. And I just don't think that they've
potentially racist. and or some type of
sexist.
ism.
I think this one's more of the sexist thing where, you do have a female villain, but you make her the crazy, like her motives are not the same as, like if it were William Shatner's character were the villain in the end because he's being forced out, kind of a thing, it would be less believable than, or would be more. I don't know, it's confusing, and it's like the reasons that she's bad is because she wants to be more entertaining, and it's just muddled and confusing, and but I think we should probably wrap it up there. Let us know the gender politics you prefer in your early 2000s chick flicks. And, let us know what you thought of Miss Congeniality, if you think anything about it. If you don't, just leave a comment saying I don't think about this movie. And then also tell us what we should watch. Because the more you interact with us, the more we'll get those kinds of things. If you don't care about chick flicks, we won't watch chick flicks.
Please
if
don't
that's all
request
you
we
want to
watch
see.
chick flicks. Please don't.
And you just guarantee that's going to happen
Please
again.
don't.
So, I'm sure my best friend's wedding will be the next one. So, anyways, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Adios.
See ya.